Welcome to the Peace of Living podcast. We're your hosts, Allison
and Jason,
and we are so happy to be back with you. We apologize for missing out on last week. As you probably noticed, we sometimes miss a week or two here and there, and that's not because, it is sometimes because we're busy and things just happen. Life happens. But I think a big part of it too is that we just really care about your time, and we don't want to just record something for the sake of just putting something out there. So if we don't feel particularly inspired, sometimes we'll just skip a week and give ourselves some time to regroup a little bit. And I feel like last week was a combination of being really busy and uninspired.
Yeah, we had I feel like we had several different ideas kind of pass through, but nothing really stuck. And we really do. We really value your time, and we do take this seriously, and we do pray about what we're going to talk about, for days, sometimes weeks in advance. And so, yeah, I just want to echo what Allie said. We usually won't record, and usually it is every week, right? Usually it is. There's something that kind of percolates on our minds, but yeah, it kind of took a minute for this to settle, but I think we've got something really, really worthwhile to talk about tonight.
Yeah. And if you have any particular topics that you want us to cover in the future, some of our episodes have been inspired by people reaching out and just asking questions or suggesting things. And we love that because we want it to be of personal value to you. So feel free to shoot us a text, a message, an email, whatever. And yeah, we'd be happy to discuss something. It's not that we have all the answers, obviously. We are not your go-to source for all things truth and knowledge, trust us. But we're just happy to start a conversation and get you thinking about something, and frankly, to learn about something ourselves. So if it helps someone to dive deep into a topic, then yeah, we're willing to do that. And so tonight, as Jason mentioned, we think we've got something that hopefully will resonate with a lot of people.
That was good.
Yeah, you'll see what I did there in a few minutes. But at the end, we have I'm calling it a fun favor to ask. It's not just a favor. This is a fun favor.
Yeah, it's
because cool. We're not asking you to do something that's hopefully inconvenient. It's something that you would enjoy doing and that might benefit everybody who's listening. So please stay tuned, listen all the way for that, because we definitely need your help. But tonight's topic, I'll just kick it off because it has a lot to do with one of my favorite scripture verses, which is in Doctrine and Covenants, section 25, verse 12, which says, "For my soul delighteth in the song of the heart. Yea, the song of the righteous is a prayer unto me, and it shall be answered with a blessing upon their heads." That is the section that was delivered via revelation to Joseph Smith, kind of on behalf of Emma Smith, his wife. And it was about her being asked to compile a bunch of hymns for the church and favorite songs and stuff. But also that verse just taken by itself, I feel like is applicable on so many different levels, because I feel like music is its own language. And I feel like it's a language that's a little closer to whatever language we were all speaking before
I totally
we
agree.
all split into our different tongues, And there are so many times when I feel like I don't know what to pray for. I don't know how to articulate what it is that I want or that I need. But sometimes I feel like even if I listen to a song, singing it is great. That's, I think, the preferred method of getting these feelings out. But sometimes just tuning in to the right music gets my heart into the place where it needs to be to connect with God.
Yeah. Yeah, I have several thoughts. I love that. So Reuben Clark, he said this a long time ago. I believe he was an apostle about maybe over 100 years ago at this point, but he said that we get nearer to the Lord through music than perhaps through any other thing except prayer. I think that's pretty awesome. that we have an apostle, saying that we can get nearer to God through music than perhaps any other thing except prayer. And speaking of that resonance and maybe why, uh, sometimes I have the same experience, and just, for my own life, I would say honestly, some of like, I would say the experiences where I would say I felt like the spirit the strongest, in the sense like I felt God's love and like connected to him, was honestly like through music. I feel so fortunate, and I really do. Like, I had a really good high school experience, and I do attribute a lot of that to being involved with the excellent music program that was at my high school. And I mean, I was never like the top or first chair, but man, I had such a good time. I wouldn't say I was like super gifted, but I was in the band, I was in the jazz band, I was in the concert choir, and then it all started in junior high, but it really kind of just climaxed in high school. I actually did play in the jazz band at the U, which my high school jazz band was better than the U's, but that's another story. I remember like playing, there's something about playing those songs, and not even necessarily religious ones, but like when I would play them, and like, it was awesome because we were all like pretty good. And when you're in unison playing your parts together, and it's all just like this fine, like knit tapestry, man, it's beautiful and it's super moving. I remember like getting like seriously, like pretty emotional during playing, and also listening to other, like the madrigals or whatever. And those experiences were super formative growing up. And same thing since. And I think, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but certainly add your own spin on it, but some of the in recent years, some of the most spiritual experiences I think that I've had has been actually, so Allie and I, we love to go to the Cathedral of the Madeleines
Oh man,
Christmas Carol
so
concert.
good.
I almost don't want to say it because I don't want it to get any bigger than it is.
Don't go.
Don't go. It's the worst.
Actually, no, the tickets are sold out anyway.
That's true.
It's a first come. They're free, but it's first come, first served. You have to claim them. And so,
and it is so incredible, and
man,
just
it's ethereal.
It is. The sound is heavenly, and the singing and the cathedral is beautiful. I love Catholic stuff. I love the rituals. I love the imagery. I just think it's really cool, and it resonates with me. I don't know. I don't think it's going to resonate with everybody, but it like resonates with. And when I say resonates, like, so there's a principle called sympathetic resonance, and it's the principle like that tuning forks operate by. So if you strike a tuning fork and another fork is in the same frequency, you can strike the tuning fork, and those sound waves will pass through the air and cause the other tuning fork to also vibrate and produce the same sound at the same frequency that the first was producing. Same thing. It's the same principle with like crystal bowls, right? And there's, a lot of, beliefs around like the healing with crystal bowls or whatever. Without going too far into that, it's the same principle. Like you can, you take the mallet and you go along the edge of the crystal bowl, and you get one, even if it's a different size. This is pretty cool. Even if the other bowl next to it is a different size, larger, smaller, shape, whatever, if it's in the same frequency, that bowl will also vibrate, and you can actually stop the vibration on the original bowl, and the other will continue on. And in my mind, that kind of illustrates the power of music to put us on God's frequency. Like Allie mentioned, the music maybe even being kind of the language of the gods, right? Like it's universal. Music's worldwide, and it resonates with us on like a deeper level than just even like saying words does. And I do think it is kind of like that. I think music really does help put us on God's frequency so that he can speak to us much more clearly, much more powerfully. It's like it's putting on his frequency, but also it's like an amplifier for his voice. And almost immediately, I mean, within even just a few notes of certain songs, I can feel the emotion. Like I can feel my whole mood change, and it puts me in a state of being where he can speak to me. And I do agree with J. Reuben Clark's statement that we can get nearer to God through music than perhaps through any other thing except prayer. And I'll say, like, you know, it's taken me a while to kind of like refine uh my, I don't know, my interests. And I don't listen to music a ton. There's just, I feel like not as much time. I used to be way into music like in high school and college and stuff, but now it's like, now I see it not all the time. There's certainly just like, I just want to kick back and listen to fun music, but also at the same time, I've realized much more in my life now as I've gotten older, uh, how much a tool music is to put me in the same frequency, to have that resonance happen with God, and like faster, quicker, better, stronger, right? And anyway, I just think it's a super powerful tool. And like going back to the Cathedral of the Madeleine, that's an experience that within even a few notes, and hearing those just sopranos, like that resonates with my soul. And I mean, boy, there's just so many experiences like that I could share, but those are just a few that come to mind. And I mean, this is pretty cool too. So in our Old Testament study, when we talk about the book of Psalms, the translation of that word, that simply just means like a holy song, like a song of praise. And this is actually really cool from Elder Holland. Elder Holland said this. He said, Jesus, this is pretty sweet and speaks a ton about getting in God's frequency, right? Jesus himself quoted the book of Psalms more than any other Old Testament text. And that tells you, and I don't even know if maybe it wasn't even just quoting. Maybe he was singing it. I don't know. It's just a thought. And then he said, beyond the Savior's own use of these writings, the authors of the four Gospels drew heavily on the Psalms as they strove to document his life and ministry, particularly those excruciating hours of his arrest, trial, and crucifixion. Jesus, that was the number one thing he quoted, was the Psalms. That's so cool. Largely written by David. And in fact, before Jesus went into the garden in Matthew chapter 26, it says that one of the final things that the final thing they did before he left to the garden was they sang a hymn.
Yeah.
Right? And I wonder if that was in part to get Jesus in that frequency. Like, I've got to get in God's frequency right now.
I've never thought about that before.
Right?
Like, I really like that thought.
This is the last thing. I got to sing a song, and then I'm going.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a prayer.
It's
right?
Exactly. Well, one of the guys I work with, he always says, like, he always makes, the classes sing all the verses to the songs, because he's like, well, a half-sung song is a half-said prayer. Like, okay, I kind of like that, right? It's a prayer. It's to, again, communicate and get in that frequency. I just believe it and stand by this so strongly. And it's really interesting too. I don't know if you've ever read the the preface to the hymn book. Have you ever read that?
Once upon a time, I'm
right?
sure I have. I can't tell you that I know it word for word.
It's really interesting. Like, listen to some of this, for example. So, and this was written like in the 80s, right? And it says music has boundless powers for moving. Now, notice the focus on families as I read this. It doesn't talk so much about church. It does, but especially the family. Music has boundless powers for moving families toward greater spirituality and devotion to the gospel. Latter-day Saints should fill their homes with the sound of worthy music. Notice it doesn't even mention your ward or congregation. And then it says, ours is a hymn book for the home first, as well as for the meeting house. That wording is so interesting to me. It's for the home.
This was in the 80s.
Yeah. It's way ahead of its time, I feel like. This is for the home as well as for the meeting house. We hope this hymn book will take a prominent place among the scriptures and other religious books in our homes. The hymns can bring families a spirit of beauty and peace and can inspire love and unity among family members. Teach your children to love the hymns. Sing them on the Sabbath, in home evening, during scripture study, at prayer time. Sing as you work, as you play, and as you travel together. Sing hymns as lullabies to build faith and testimony in your young ones. I think that's so cool. In addition to blessing us as a church and family members, the hymns can greatly benefit us as individuals. Hymns can lift our spirits, give us courage, and move us to righteous action. They can fill our souls with heavenly thoughts and bring us a spirit of peace. Hymns can also help us withstand the temptations of the adversary. We encourage you to memorize your favorite hymns and study the scriptures that relate to them. Then, if unworthy thoughts enter your mind, sing a hymn to yourself, crowding out the evil with the good.
Sing out with vigor and vim?
Yeah. Brothers and sisters, let us use the hymns to invite the Spirit of the Lord into our congregations, our homes, and our personal lives. Let's memorize and ponder them, recite and sing them, and partake of their spiritual nourishment. Know that the song of the righteous, like Ali read, is a prayer unto your Father in heaven, and it shall be answered with a blessing upon your head. Sincerely, the First Presidency.
Well, that makes me extra excited for the updated hymn book that's coming out supposedly next year. Is it?
Supposedly. And it kind of gives some context to perhaps why it's taken so long. Not only did they have tens of thousands of submissions, but if it's meant to take its rightful place next to your scriptures as a form of worship and connection to God, then they're obviously and thankfully taking this very, very seriously. And, maybe not all the hymns are easy to sing or well known, but even just reading through and reading the words and like hearing the music, it's a powerful connection. Again, it's the idea of that sympathetic resonance. Maybe God, I heard something on a different podcast one time that God speaks to us as a God, right? Like as a human, but also like he speaks to us as a God. And sometimes we need to like get into his frequency to really fully feel and understand his words. And I think music is like, hey, tune in so you can hear my language and understand it.
Oh, that's so good. As you were talking, that made me think about how nowadays it's all about numbing out and not feeling things. We don't like our feelings. We want to push them down. We want to, disregard them. Anything that will help us not feel, we go after that.
Yeah.
And I think that is why music is so important, is it because it keeps us in tune with our feelings, with our heart, with our spirits. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I really love about our kids in particular. And I think like all young children, most young children, like kids just sing freely and they're not worried about like what people think or being judged or whatnot. Like the number of times that our kids will just be singing to themselves. And it's not like, okay, we don't just like sing hymns in our house all the time. I mean, there's a good mixture of stuff. But I remember one of our neighbors in our previous ward, or was it in our current ward? No, it was, one of our neighbors in our previous ward told us, because like when Mary was little, you could not stop this girl from singing her heart out. When I say little, I mean like under 2 years old.
Yes, it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, she's still little. She
still sings a lot,
but this was like nonstop singing all the time,
like top of her lungs.
It would be like disruptive in church. And you know what?
That's right.
I'm a little bit proud of the fact that a little bit of Queen and like Michael Jackson made their way into sacrament meeting. He would just start singing "We Will Rock You" or "We Are the Champions" during the sacrament, and I'm like, oh,
I forgot about that. Oh man, that's yeah.
But I remember like I was like a little bit embarrassed and self-conscious about it, obviously, and people were good-natured about it, do the little turn and smile at us, but
that's right.
But I remember our neighbor telling us, if she's singing, she's happy.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that.
Neither.
Like, okay, because there have been times, and even even recently, as Jason can attest, there um that just this time of year with the holidays and with the end of year approaching and needing to get things done and just all the things, they pile up, and the weight of mortality, as we've talked about before, just starts to feel a little heavy, and I can get overwhelmed and really frustrated, and it can be hard for me to feel anything but the negative stuff. And that's when it's really hard for me to fight for peace, as odd as that sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I have to it's almost like I use music as medicine, really, to
Mm-hmm.
listen to things, and I will, to the best of my ability, try to just like sing on my own, in the car, in the house. Like, I don't, my family knows I sing all the time around my family. I don't care. Like, probably not going to do it around random strangers or anything like that. But like in my own house, I make it a point to just like sing out loud as often as I can. And I think my kids catch on to that. Our kids catch on to that, and
Yeah, definitely.
they do that too. And I think there's something really stress relieving about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that does over time make a difference. And in a way, sometimes it's almost like my SOS signal to God. I'm like, okay, I'm having a hard day. I'm just gonna sing this out, whatever songs on my mind. And it's not always a church song, It's
No.
sometimes it's
Uh-uh.
just songs that were meaningful to me as a child. Like, I grew up in a house where music was really a big part of my upbringing. And both of us were
Yeah.
raised very musically. You in like the more like involved in the instruments and band and all of that. And I wish that I had been more committed to learning an instrument, but I never quite got the hang of I can mediocrely play the piano
Yeah.
and
You're great.
pluck out a few chords on a guitar, but I am beginner level, maybe even advanced beginner, I would say. But like, despite the fact that wouldn't call myself a musician per se, like, still I know that music was a huge part of my life because my dad in particular was just always filling our home with music. And I grew up on like music of the 60s and the 70s. And
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that I had a unique upbringing because I knew all of the old songs and I knew all the Broadway songs. So we watched a bunch of musicals, and we would always attend plays and concerts. And I feel like my parents gave me like a pretty well-rounded um like exposure to all sorts of music growing up, and I'm grateful to them for that.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like Saturday mornings, we always knew it was time to clean when Dad cranked up Oldies 94.1, like, because this was the days before streaming, obviously, and cell phones and AirPods and all that, and just so we could all hear it throughout the whole house, the radio would just be turned on full blast, and we'd be listening to these old songs. And I came to associate that with cleaning as I was growing up. And so like I kind of resented some of the oldie songs growing up because I thought, this is my cleaning music. And then I went on my mission, and I remember we were doing some service on a Saturday in a park, like painting benches or something. And there was a house down the street that was playing oldies music on a Saturday. And I
That's
suddenly
cool.
like got really emotional. I'm like, that's my cleaning music
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Saturdays. And that's now become like this beloved part of my upbringing because I can look back on it with nostalgia.
Yeah, no, I feel very grateful to my parents too. I mean, I wasn't exposed to as many. I still did watch a decent number of like musicals and things growing up, but I still remember some of like honestly some like really early memories of me was listening to just like rock and roll with my dad. Like I remember when I was just like a little boy, like standing, we had these huge speakers. Actually, my parents still have them in the basement, like these huge, nice, like speakers. They sounded sweet. And like, just like standing in front of them with my dad, listening to like Toto, like Rosanna and like Africa and stuff. And, Styx, obviously, REO Speedwagon, Queen, like so many, but like so loud. And like, my dad just teaching me such an appreciation of sound and like just really, really great music. In fact, I mean, we same thing Saturdays. And man, as you're saying this, it's like I'm really grateful for AirPods, especially so I can talk on the phone, like just walking around. But at the same time, like, man, what an isolating experience. Because same thing for me. Like, we just had, 70s and 80s rock and roll just blaring through the house, like pretty often. And I mean, when my dad built our house, that I lived in most of my childhood, like he even wired speakers in the upstairs hallway, like recessed into the wall. If I don't know if you've ever even noticed
I
them,
don't think I
there's
have.
speakers in the upstairs hallway recessed into the wall that are wired all the way downstairs to the receiver. Now there's Bluetooth and everything else, but like he put speakers up there so that we could listen to music throughout the house.
That's cool.
Yeah, it
That's
was really.
something that's so Eric.
Yeah, yeah. And like I remember too, like, and maybe not totally music related, but I remember when my dad first installed or wired up surround sound, and I was like just little, probably like Finn's age. And he would like even invite like friends, like his friends over and neighbors over, and they were like blown away because surround sound was like this new thing to have like in your house. And we would like crank up things like, Star Wars or Indiana Jones or like whatever. And it just like, it it was just amazing. It was magical to me, and the movies, the magic of the movies have always been like a big part of my life. I still love going to movies. But like the sound, especially. And I don't know if Sam Fowler is ever going to listen to this, but he understands. Like we talked about this a lot. Like we were just obsessed with good speakers in high school and just like something sounding really, really good and like good music played through those speakers. Like it really can affect you. And uh, yeah, I like even, yeah. I mean, I remember even just in high school, like going to the basement and turning up music, I don't remember even what it was. Might have been some of my favorite bands or whatever. And even it's like instrumental stuff too. Just sit in the basement with it cranked up, like left the lights off, my eyes closed, and it was just like amazing, amazing. It just it does something for your soul that truly nothing else can. Like there's nothing else that can do what music can do for you.
Well, I don't know if you're ready for this, but I
Yeah.
thought that since it is Christmas time when this is coming out,
Yeah.
that we should specifically talk about Christmas music right
Yeah.
now too,
Let's do it.
because okay, listen, I know that there's a lot of complicated feelings out there when it comes to Christmas music. It's kind of a love it or hate it type of a thing for a lot of people because they just get burnt out by it. They feel like they listen to the same songs over and over again. I understand. I get it. But
Unless it's the Carpenters' Christmas album, you can
oh,
listen to that
best
on loop.
album
That is my favorite
ever.
Christmas album. I love it.
Yeah. Well, we thought it might be fun to talk about like how we hear him, how we hear God, how we really connect with Jesus, how that's a way that you can feel his spirit at the Christmas time is through uplifting seasonal music. And again, not just strictly spiritual, religious Christmas music, although I obviously think that is probably the most obvious way to get connected with him on that level. But um I thought it'd be fun for Jason and me both to kind of highlight some of our favorite spiritual/religious Christmas songs, in addition to just like the traditional everyday Christmas songs that we love, with the hopes that you might open up your heart to this because we we know that like this time of year it's complicated. It comes with a whole mixed bag of emotions, and for a lot of people this is a very sad time of year, for a number of reasons because Christmas, there's a lot of memories tied with Christmas and not all of them are always good. There can be a lot of pain for people. I also think that since we're like approaching the end of a year, that can feel sad too, because it almost is like a mourning of times past, and you're a year older now, and it just, I don't know, it's really easy to be hit with strong emotions, whether they're good or bad this time of year. And
Yeah.
I was actually reading, of all things, there was a Business Insider article that I found that talked about kind of the the power of Christmas music in particular.
Cool.
And because it said that the thing about Christmas music is that it has the ability, unlike any other genre of music really, to make you feel nostalgic. And the thing about nostalgia is that makes you feel simultaneously happy and sad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I thought that was really interesting because when I think about the songs that I like to listen to at Christmas time, yeah, a lot of them really do kind of like gut punch me and make me happy at the same time. And honestly, you mentioned a Carpenter's Christmas Portrait.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite Christmas albums and music albums ever, for that matter. But it's also tied with a lot of like sadness because you bought me the CD for me to listen to. Man, the times of CDs. This is how long ago this was.
Which wasn't even like that.
It wasn't that long ago.
It was a while ago, but
was.
not that long ago.
Yeah,
right?
it was the fall, or yeah, the Christmas of 2015. It was right before Finn was born because I was still very pregnant at the time. And we had
our Land Cruiser.
Oh wait, we didn't get the Cruiser yet, did we? Because we had
I don't remember.
We got the Cruiser after Finn was
we had
born.
the Forester.
But I think we still had a CD player in the Forester.
Yeah,
because this was pre Apple CarPlay.
Yeah, Bluetooth was there, but no Apple CarPlay.
Yeah, but we still had a CD player, which is a rarity in cars these days. But
except for in Lexus products, by the way, it's so funny. They know their demographic.
I'm not gonna let you go down that path. Derail us. Jason was really sweet, and he knew so. This was a Christmas without my parents at home because they were serving a mission in Canada at the time. And also it was kind of sad, not kind of sad. It was very sad because my Aunt Leslie was fighting a really tough battle with breast cancer at the time. And, things obviously were not looking great. She was stage 4 and going downhill quickly. And the last time that I saw her was, I think, around about the time when you gave me that Christmas album, because it was like the end of November and we were going to go see her up at the Huntsman Cancer Institute. And I was listening to that music on the way there and on the way back. And so in between listening to these songs, I had, seen my aunt face to face in person for the last time. And so I didn't know that was going to be the last time seeing her. But anyway, so now when I listen to Carpenter's Christmas, it just comes with a range of emotions. Like, I'm happy because I love it and it reminds me of my childhood still, but it also just reminds me of the last time I saw my aunt. And that is a happy, sad memory because I'm like, I know she's in a better place. I know that she's not suffering anymore, but I miss her, Yeah. And I feel like that is a big reason why I love Christmas music, is because it just shoots me back to specific times of life.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you want to share any of your favorite songs? Because I've got a whole long list of things I was going to share, but I don't want to keep talking endlessly.
Yeah, I'll share it briefly and then let you take it over, because I know you've got a longer list than I do.
Try to keep it under 2 hours.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, there's just such strong memories. I think of, when you and I used to go over to our friend Dawn's apartment at Christmas. Dawn's apartment at Christmas at Zion Summit behind the conference center was a truly magical place.
There's no cozier atmosphere.
It was so nice. And I can't wait to experience that again someday. But yeah, just two, these are random. These are so random songs, but 2 songs that always, we're talking again about resonate with me, put me in, I think, the frequency of God. So the first, I'll go slightly more spiritual first. How about that? Okay. This is a song that usually is sung actually at the Cathedral of the Madeleine choir concert, Christmas carol concert. And man, this song, I first heard it when I was in high school, and I've never forgot it because of the impact it had on me. Like, how cool is that? Like, and it's not like I listen to this all the time, but it had such an impact on me that very first time it stuck with me. And it's in Latin, so it's, kind of hard to understand.
I
But
know what you're going to say.
the English translation, so the song is called O Magnum Mysterium, and it's a simple song, but it's so beautiful. Eric Whitaker and his singers does a great rendition of this if you want to listen to it. But the translation simply says, "O great mystery and wonderful sacrament, that animals should see the newborn Lord lying in a manger. Blessed is the Virgin whose womb was worthy to bear Christ the Lord. Alleluia." And it's so simple, but the way it's sung is truly a prayer. Like, you will feel connected to heaven as you listen to it, I promise. Which, side note, I don't believe it was this song, but back when I was visiting Germany with a really dear friend of mine, we were in a place called Rotenburg ob der Tauber, and we were walking the town late at night. It was like 11:30 at night, and no one's out. And we're wandering to like the corner of this it's like literally a medieval town. It's so cool. If you've never heard of it, you should look it up. So we're like in this medieval town. It's 11:30 at night, and there's this like old medieval church just like off in the corner of this place. And as we approach this church, as we're just kind of walking around these streets, cobblestone streets, so cool. I can hear something. And as we approach the church, you could hear through the thick, rock walls of the chapel of this cathedral that there was a choir singing inside so late at night. And it was something, I think, in Latin like this, but I'll never forget that. It sounded like angels singing inside. And it was just so, so beautiful. Anyway, that's a little anecdote, but O Magnum Mysterium is one of them. And secondly, you're going to laugh when I say this, but honestly, probably one of the top Christmas songs that gets me every time.
I want a hippopotamus for Christmas.
Well, it's not quite that extreme, but it's the Somewhere in My Memory by John Williams.
I'm not going to laugh at you. I love that too.
Somewhere in My Memory, John Williams from Home Alone.
It's a great song.
That song is in my head a lot. Like, I just love that song. And like throughout the year, it's in my head. But the lyrics, if you've never really paid attention to the lyrics, this is what it says. It just says, "Candles in the window, shadows painting the ceiling, gazing at the fire glow, feeling that gingerbread feeling. Precious moments, special people, happy faces I can see. Somewhere in my memory, Christmas joys all around me, living in my memory, all of the music, all of the magic, all of the family home here with me." And I love the movie, but I especially love that song. And it just again, it resonates with me. It puts me in a place where I feel peaceful and I feel connected with God. So thank you to the legendary John Williams. You were a gift to this earth.
Well, it's really cute too, because I don't think it's silly whatsoever that you love that song. I don't know why you're embarrassed by it.
Oh, I'm embarrassed.
It's beautiful. But another reason why we love it too is because we have a John Williams CD of like all his best songs from the movies that he composed for, and Somewhere in My Memory is on there.
Yeah.
And Finn, for like a solid year, when he would take naps, he just wanted that song on loop. So like it would be playing on the CD player just on repeat. Like we could just put our ear up against the door and could just hear like "Somewhere in My Memory" just over and over again. And he's just snoozing away.
Yeah, sometimes for hours.
Yeah.
It would just play in his room. And now Mary's kind of picked it up too. It's really, really cute.
And besides, like, Home Alone is a year-round movie at our house anyway. Our kids love that show.
We love the first two.
Yeah, the first two only. I've never seen
the
any
rest
of the other
are
ones.
different.
But they watch it all the time and they love it. And you can judge us if you want. It may not be totally appropriate for little kids. I don't know. But
they love it.
It's brought some happy memories.
Yeah.
But that's a really good one.
Yeah.
I love that.
Those are some of my top two. I could go on, but those are what's in my head right now.
That's so good. as far as my favorite spiritual ones go, like I know it's kind of a classic one, but Oh Holy Night is one of my favorites, especially when it's done really well. I think that that's a
Yeah.
powerful hymn, really.
Yeah.
Um, and especially I love it when it's like played old fashioned with like an organ,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like so, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, it's just what's a word to describe it? It just is really deep and
Mm-hmm.
it just feels celestial, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
But the two that have come to my mind first and foremost, so Angels from the Realms of Glory. I know we mentioned this clear back last Christmas when we were
Yeah.
talking about something Christmas related. And I mentioned how that is a song that you want to talk like having a spiritual IV connected to my arm. I feel like that's one that just every time gets me. And specifically the Tabernacle Choir version that they sing at all of their Christmas concerts, because every year they always end with that song, and whoever the guest artist is, they sing along too. And I love it because it's the same version every time, but it's a
Yeah.
different voice that accompanies them every year. And so I love to listen to the different versions through the years and hear how Sissel and David Archuleta and Leah Salonga and Kristen Chenoweth, like all these big names, like how they have their own spin on this beautiful song. And I just think it's really powerful. And um, speaking of church music, this is not the fun favor that I have to ask, but it is a favor that I'm going to throw in here. I have been on a mission to find someone who will sing this song in church. I don't have the chops for it. I wish I did, but I'm not a soloist with these talents. But there is a version of the first Noel that we heard a few years ago that was part of the church's Light the World Christmas program that they did. I don't think
That nobody knew
nobody
about.
knew about. I don't
Yeah.
remember even hearing about it. I just remember like trying to look up a Christmas church music video thing
Yeah.
on YouTube, and this popped up a few years ago,
Yeah.
and I was like, wait, what's this?
Yeah.
And then I watched it, and they had a bunch of different songs on there, but this one song, this version of The First Noel was sung by this couple, and it blew me away.
It's
I
the
was like,
best version I've ever heard of it. Ever.
honestly, I've never been a big fan of The First Noel, because for me, it's a little too just like repetitive
Sure, yeah.
and a little too boring. There's not a whole lot happening with it. It's like it just it
Yeah.
doesn't really go a lot of where. But this does a really good job of staying fairly true to the original tune, but it just takes it in a slightly different direction on some of the notes where
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love how the composer put it together. I think his name is Jared Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
The the guy that plays the piano and wrote the music, I think, is the same guy. And it was a couple, Bryson and Tiara Jones were the ones who sang it. And you can find it on Spotify or Apple Music and stuff. But man, it's beautiful. You should just go listen to it.
It's amazing.
But if there's anybody that lives near us, or especially if there's anybody listening in our ward who knows of someone, like a couple preferably, or, a male and a female that can duet this song, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be awesome if we had it sung on Christmas Eve, since that's on a Sunday in our chapel. But anyway, those are the top like spiritual ones. And obviously I know you and I both like Lauren Daigle and her Christmas music.
Oh man, well, yeah. I could talk
very
forever
pretty
about Lauren Daigle.
But I also want to, just for fun, because it's okay to have fun sometimes, I wanted to talk specifically about some just like regular traditional Christmas music and specific songs even that are just tied to really strong memories that I have growing up and why I love them so much. And just speaking generally, you mentioned the Carpenters, Mannheim Steamroller, Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, Scrooge the musical, which,
I like Scrooge musical.
We watched that with some of our friends once and they were not impressed. And that's
Uh,
fine. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. But I grew up with it and I love it. The Muppets Christmas Carol, Charlie Brown, all of those and several others, they all just make me think of my childhood. And specific images will like come to my mind when I'm listening to these songs. Like a very important one for my family is the Beach Boys Christmas album, but the Little Saint Nick track on that album.
that's great.
My dad, his tradition when we're decorating the Christmas tree, the very first thing that goes on top of the tree is most people put like a star on top of the tree. Well, my dad has this lighted Santa Claus. And before you get upset and think that's sacrilegious or whatever, just know it comes with a whole lot of family tradition and stuff. So it just means a lot to the
Well,
Brewster
and what
family.
is Santa but a great symbol of Jesus, right?
Absolutely. That's our personal belief anyway. But not that we're elevating Santa above Jesus. Please don't misinterpret what we're saying,
No.
but he's a symbol of the ultimate gift giver. But always when we're decorating the tree, the lighted Santa, which has been in the family for decades, ever since my dad was a little boy, and maybe even longer. I don't remember exactly how long, but this old lighted, old-fashioned retro thing goes on top of the tree, and my dad always has to play Little Saint Nick when it goes on. And I tried to carry on that tradition when my parents were on their missions and we were decorating the tree in their house. But I don't have the lighted Santa in my own house, so I don't know. Maybe I will inherit it someday. Dibs, siblings. Just kidding. No, but seriously. But that's one specific thing that's just kind of fun for my family. And then like there was the Sunday Christmas music too that we would listen to, like Tabernacle Choir. The Nutcracker was deemed appropriate for Sundays. Kurt Bester's Christmas music was a staple in our home as well. And these, anytime I listen to them, it just shoots me back to when like my mom would be in the kitchen making her special chocolate roll with her fudge sauce, because we always had family parties on Sundays. Like there was my mom's side of the family that had parties all together. And then there was my dad's siblings they'd come over like on the last Sunday before Christmas and have a party. And my mom would always make her chocolate roll because it was beloved by everybody for good reason, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
But then there's so many songs, but this is going to be the most random list. But are you ready for it?
Let's hear it.
I'm skipping a whole bunch of my childhood here, and we're going to jump right to the high school days. Because like the movie Polar Express came out when I was a junior in high school, I think, because the Josh Groban song Believe that was on that album came out at that time. And I remember listening to it on the radio. I was one of those kids that like November 1st, as soon as the radio deemed it were like appropriate to listen to Christmas music, I was always cranking it in my Honda CRV. And like Believe played all the time because it was this new Josh Groban song. And it meant a lot to me because I was a big Josh Groban fan in high school, thanks in large part to my sister Katie, who was in love with him and married his lookalike.
That's right.
But also I remember just like the lyrics of that song making me think about like being a kid and how here I was like a 16-year-old in high school, knowing that I had just like a couple more precious years left as a kid. And I was like on this cusp of being an adult. And I guess I was kind of unique in the sense that unlike so many high schoolers, I did not want to grow up. It's like, why would I want to be an adult? This is fun. Like, I enjoy being young and carefree. Like, I don't want all that adult stuff. No, thanks. But now when I listen to that song, it just reminds me of just being a kid, and which I think is like the point of it, like go back to the time when you believed. Yeah. And, if my dad's listening, which I think he is, like, yeah, I still believe in Santa Claus. My dad still says that. I still say that. I personally believe that he's actually your dad, but
he is.
Yeah, he is. Well, yeah, he is Santa Claus. There's just no arguing that. A funny one, just mixing it up a little bit, You will never hear this song the same way again. My college days, of all of the songs that make me think of my college days, A Holly Jolly Christmas by Burl Ives,
Okay.
because our friend ruined it for us, but it also improved it, I guess, too. He's like, have you guys ever listened to that song by this old dude? He says, Holly Jolly Christmas, but he says it so weird. He says, have a holly jolly Christmas.
Yeah.
It's so bad. So every time I listen to it now, I'm like, have a holly jolly Christmas. And I can't unhear it. So that's just a fun one. And then I have to mention, like, it's funny because the hymns, the Christmas hymns that are in like the hymn book, I have never sung them so often in my life as I did on my mission.
Yeah.
Because that was I don't want to say we were cheating. We weren't cheating per se, but my companion and I at the time, we were in the city and we thought like, hey, you know what would be a really easy way to get a lot of lessons in is just go caroling to people. Because technically, like, it's a prayer. It teaches a message.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't take up a lot of time for people. And so, like, we spent several days throughout the month of December just going around and singing hymns in Spanish to people. And the best memory that I have, I'm not saying this is the best memory of my entire mission. It's up there, though. It's definitely up there.
Right.
So in Panama, they have these things called Diablos Rojos, that's what they call the buses. They're these school buses that, I kid you not, like yellow school buses, but they have been given like tattoo parlor style paint jobs and like graffiti all over them. Like they are just insane. And the Panamanians will take the mufflers out. I may have mentioned this on a previous episode about our mission, but the Panamanians will take the mufflers off of the bus for the express purpose of it being as loud as possible.
Oh, that's so terrible.
Because they instead of like having actual nice public transportation where people just come and sit down on nice chairs, they would just like cram people onto these school buses. So you'd give the driver your quarter or whatever. Because, yeah, they use American money in Panama, fun fact. And then if you were lucky and you got there before a bunch of people, you would get a seat. If not, you were literally like pressed up against people on the bus.
Oh, man.
And it was the most, I'm glad I didn't have claustrophobia problems on my mission, because looking back on it, I'm like, how did I do that? Like it was a clown car. You would cram yourself in there, just pack them in. And then like, when you wanted to stop, you would just yell, stop. You'd say, parada! And then the bus driver would just stop.
That's great.
You'd get out. But so Hermana Bloomfield and I had the brilliant idea that we were going to get a whole bunch of contacts that day by caroling on a Diablo Rojo, which was the worst / best idea ever, because we went up to the bus driver and we asked him like, hey, do you mind if we sing some Christmas songs to everybody on the bus? And the bus driver, I remember, like stared at us like we were idiots, but kind of like shrugged, like, whatever you want to do, white girls, go for it. And so like we had our little hymn books, and then we pulled them out and like we start singing while the bus is stopped. And so we're like, escuchad el son triunfal, and then the bus goes, and then we're like, de la hueste celestial. By the end of it, we're like screaming at the top of our lungs these hymns. Meanwhile, people are yelling parada and like pushing through the crowds and like pulling us over, like pushing us over unintentionally, right? But at one point my backpack got caught on someone's arm who was trying to get on the bus. And so I was being dragged away down the aisle with this passenger. And meanwhile, I'm like yelling at him on Bluefield, where are we? What verse are we on? But it was, oh man, I don't even think I'm doing it justice at all for how hilarious it was. But I remember us getting up because like all the Panamanians were just staring at us stone-faced. So part of me wanted to like cover up the badge and be like, do not associate our church with this moment right now. Like, this was a bad choice, but you will never forget it. But yeah, we had a good laugh about that. And I've honestly never looked at the Christmas hymns quite the same way ever since. And I wish we just sang them in Spanish. And like another sweeter memory is when, because we had Finn December 19th, 2015. So we got home because I had a C-section. So I was in the hospital for a few days, and we got home the day before. Was it the day before Christmas Eve?
I think so.
Yeah. I just wanted to be home. And so obviously on Christmas Eve, I wasn't going anywhere because I was healing from a C-section and had this newborn baby. And I just stayed like on a reclining chair with him all day, just snuggling him, feeding him, and listening to Christmas music. And like there was a Faith Hill song called A Baby Changes Everything, which starts out as talking about like a teenager that gets pregnant, but then it like transitions into how when Jesus is born, a baby changes everything, and so cool. Everything is okay. And so that song, strange as it is, just reminds me of like when Finn was a little baby. And so does Who Would Imagine a King, which is the Whitney Houston song that's from, I've forgotten the name of the movie. The Preacher's Wife or something like that. Know. It's like the modern version of The Bishop's Wife. But anyway, look up the Whitney Houston Christmas movie. It's the song on that. And it's just sweet because it's like the song all about how like moms and dads always wonder what their kids are going to be when they grow up. And like, maybe you'll be a carpenter or a fisherman, Jesus, but you're actually going to be a king. And I loved listening to that song because like, I'm just looking at this newborn baby, and just thinking like, man, what are you gonna be when you grow up? And I love that, like, even though he's going to grow up and have this mortal job, whatever he ends up doing, Finn's going to be super successful at because he's brilliant. But you're so much more than that. Like, ultimately, like you are a king too. You have that waiting for you beyond this life. And so
it's good.
Anyway, there are so many other songs that I could share. I feel like I've gone on for a long time, so I'm trying to turn it over to you. No, you're good. Nothing else to add to this?
Did you want to talk about our invitation? I'll say something at the end, but you want to talk about the invitation?
So first of all, back to the whole idea of Christmas music being nostalgic, and that actually the article that I read, it said like that it's actually good for you. It's good for your emotional and mental health when you can just let yourself feel those feelings. So if you need to listen to a Christmas song and have a good cry, do it. If you want to listen to something to help you feel happy, that's great too. But it might just help kind of lighten the load for you. And we just want to encourage you to really just get back into music, and specifically right now, Christmas music. If you don't like it, find the stuff that you do like, because there's so many different artists, so many different versions of things that you maybe just haven't landed on the thing that resonates with you,
Yeah.
And so we have a fun favor. Here it is that we're going to ask of you. We want you to help us create a Christmas playlist. And we're going to call it the Peace of Living Christmas playlist. And I'll put it on Spotify, and it'll be searchable for that. And if you just want to send us your suggestions for like your favorite Christmas music, and it doesn't have to be strictly spiritual, like we've said, it can just be something that's really meaningful to you or you think is great, and we will add it to the list. And because worst case scenario, like someone can listen to the playlist, and if they don't like that song or whatever, that's what skip is for. Just skip that one and go on. But hopefully our hope is that this exposes people to the best of what's out there in terms of Christmas music. And selfishly, I hope that that introduces us to some new things that we haven't yet discovered.
Yeah.
I hope to get some new favorite Christmas music from this. And I think it just would be a cool kind of unifying thing for those of you who are listening and for us to just have something that is ours that we can all enjoy kind of simultaneously wherever we might be this Christmas season and beyond. And you can just think of it as like our Christmas gift to you. On top of providing the podcast, we hope that this curated playlist coming from all of us will lift your spirits and put you into the right frame of mind, the right frequency where you'll be able to just feel more of the reality of God and of divinity and the spirit that's inside of you. Get into touch with that. And remember that like you are so much more than just your mortal circumstances. Like time travel a little bit, either back or forth here with the music that you're listening to and allow yourself to just enjoy this Christmas season through music.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to conclude, I just want to reiterate how we began, that we can come closer to God through, besides prayer, it's music. And, it's a great tool to get into his frequency, to get on his level where he can communicate with us and resonate with us. And I think, again, just as a reminder of all the things, all the scriptures Jesus quoted and the gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the number one book was the book of Psalms, the book of
So cool.
hymns. And maybe it was quotations. Maybe he said those things. Maybe he sang them. I don't know. But I think that's very intentional to look at who Jesus was and what he did, and then what that means for us in following his example. And maybe, I don't know, just a thought, maybe sometimes we just make things harder for ourselves by not using music to the extent of to a greater extent of like it being a tool. Like, let's leverage that.
And a gift.
It's a gift. Let's leverage it. Let's use it to launch us forward in following him.
Well, and I just remembered this tonight. I have to add this real fast before we conclude. Tonight we had the opportunity of going with the young women. I had Jason and the kids joined us too because they couldn't resist like
it's fun
being part of this activity because my parents are assigned to serve at the local assisted living center. And we've been there a few times with the kids and they love visiting with the elderly people there. Our kids just, they're old souls, so it makes sense. But tonight we took the young women and we mostly just sang Christmas carols and songs.
Yeah.
And it was cool because like we went to the memory care building where there's a lot of people with dementia and other memory loss problems and some that are nonverbal. And while we were singing, a few of them kind of like were joining in and singing a little bit with us, which I thought was sweet at the time, but I didn't realize how cool that really was until after the fact when my dad kind of pulled the young women aside and shared what the one of the staff members said. And she said, like, it was really neat to see some of our patients with dementia or our residents with dementia who are nonverbal, like they don't speak at all. They were singing.
Yeah.
They're singing along with these songs because again, like there is just something about music that just cuts through the noise in our hearts and our minds. And we understand it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just let it have a healing effect for you.
Yeah. And I would just lastly just make the invitation to especially to maybe like the younger crowd that might be listening, is I know music is such a huge part of your life. I just know that. And it was for me at the time. But if I could invite you just to take inventory of what you're literally putting in your ears. We like to plug in our AirPods and like Allie talked about, disconnect. And I'm not saying there's not a place for that, but maybe just take inventory and ask, like, is this helping me get in frequency with God or not? And, not that it all has to, but let the Spirit guide you and leverage that tool, that gift.
That's really good, because every type of music carries a spirit with it. So you get to decide what kind of spirit you want to invite into your life. So that is up to you 100%. Yeah. But thank you so much for listening to us, for being here, for sharing this podcast with others, for sending in your comments. We read them all and they mean so much to us. So thank you for your kind words. And if you have any feedback, we are always open to that. And we just want to, again, put out that special request for your favorite Christmas music, that you can message us on Instagram at Peace of Living. And you can also send us text messages or I think
however
email,
you want to contact us, peaceoflivingpodcast@gmail.com.
peaceoflivingpodcast@gmail.com.
Just on our personal Instagram, whatever.
Yep. But we look forward to hearing from you, and we will be back next week with a new episode. Thanks for being here. We love you so much.
See ya.